It's been a bit of a shock. However much one tries to prepare oneself for something like this, it's still a dreadful shock, and we're still trying to come to terms with that. And it's very, very sad.
Prince Edward's announcement about bidding farewell to Buckingham Palace has sent shockwaves across the royal circle and beyond. What could have compelled him, the youngest child of the late Queen Elizabeth II, to make such a momentous decision? Is it personal freedom he seeks, an inner rift with other family members, or another step into the redefined roles of today's royalty? These questions have sparked widespread speculation as people delve into the layers of this surprising development, exploring the motivations, implications, and what this means for the future of the House of Windsor. The announcement has particularly resonated due to Prince Edward's unique position within the royal family. As the youngest son of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, he has always stood apart from his siblings. Born on March 10, 1964, at Buckingham Palace, Edward grew up in the public eye but often preferred a quieter, more behind-the-scenes role in the monarchy. Unlike his elder brothers, King Charles III and Prince Andrew, Edward opted to steer away from a traditional military career, instead pursuing a path in the arts and media. After earning a degree in history from Cambridge University, Edward briefly worked with the theatre company founded by Andrew Lloyd Webber before establishing his own production company, Ardent Productions, in 1993. While the company faced criticism for its management and content, it underscored Edward's desire to carve out an independent identity. In 1999, Edward married Sophie Rhys-Jones, now the Duchess of Edinburgh. Their wedding marked the beginning of a partnership that would see them become prominent figures in the royal family. Over the years, Edward took on numerous royal duties, eventually ascending to the title of Duke of Edinburgh following his father's passing. His role within the monarchy expanded significantly, though his understated demeanor often contrasted sharply with the headline-grabbing actions of other royals. In a surprising move, Prince Edward recently announced his decision to step back from Buckingham Palace, signaling a shift in his royal trajectory. This decision, though unexpected, is not without precedent. Edward's history is marked by similarly surprising choices, including his decision to leave a future in the Royal Marines at the age of 22. At the time, Edward had been undergoing rigorous training in hopes of earning the prestigious Green Beret of the Royal Marines, Britain's elite military unit. However, after 4 challenging months of a year-long officer training course, he chose to resign. This move, made after significant personal deliberation and intense family discussions, shocked many and broke with royal tradition. Buckingham Palace confirmed Edward's resignation, noting that it had been made after much consideration and with significant regret. The palace stated that Edward had concluded the Marines were not the right fit for his long-term aspirations and that no announcement about his future plans was imminent. The decision followed a weekend summit at the royal family's Sandringham estate in Norfolk, where Edward presented his case during what was reportedly a difficult conversation with the Queen, Prince Philip, his elder brothers Prince Charles and Prince Andrew, and Princess Diana. While none of the family members were reported to have supported his choice, Edward stood firm, explaining that continuing in a career he disliked would leave him feeling trapped. Shortly after this meeting, Edward returned to his training base at Limestone in southwestern England, where he formally handed in his resignation and uniform to his commanding officer. These pivotal moments in Edward's life highlight his determination to pursue paths that align with his personal values and aspirations, even in the face of significant challenges and expectations. The recent announcement about Buckingham Palace adds another chapter to his evolving role within the monarchy, leaving many to wonder what lies ahead for both Prince Edward and the future of the House of Windsor. This morning, Prince Edward bid farewell to his batch officers in the officers' mess before saying goodbye to other officers. Warm handshakes and well wishes were exchanged as he took leave. Prince Philip, who holds the honorary title of Captain General of the Marines, was said to be particularly displeased with Edward's decision, which some viewed as a rejection of the family's strong military tradition. Edward's father and both of his brothers had held commissions in the Royal Navy, and his decision brought attention to his struggles. These became public knowledge when London newspapers highlighted his predicament the week before his resignation. A poll conducted during this period revealed that most Britons believed Edward should be allowed to leave if it was his wish, reflecting public support for the young royal's autonomy. Edward's departure from a path so deeply rooted in family legacy seemed extraordinary to many. For him, however, the choice was clear: personal fulfillment. Reports suggested that he was considering a career in theatre, a passion vastly different from the rigid structure of military life. Despite familial pressure and widespread disapproval, Edward prioritized his happiness and aspirations over tradition. Some critics perceived this decision as a sign of weakness, while others viewed it as an act of courage in defying expectations. Ultimately, Edward's ability to stand firm against immense pressure and make a decision true to himself resonated with those who value authenticity over convention. His unexpected farewell left many speculating about his motivations. Buckingham Palace, the enduring symbol of monarchy, has long been the epicenter of royal life, making Edward's departure all the more significant. Reports suggest that Edward and Sophie plan to focus on their residence at Bagshot Park in Sue. This decision aligns with broader changes within the royal family as King Charles III continues to streamline the monarchy and redefine its role in modern Britain. Edward's departure may reflect his desire to support the king's vision while maintaining a more personal, family-oriented lifestyle. His decision raises questions about the evolving nature of royal responsibilities and the balance between public duty and personal life. Edward's move follows a precedent set by other royals such as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who redefined their roles within the family. However, unlike Harry's dramatic exit, Edward's transition appears to be a quieter one, marked by his continued commitment to royal duties, including his involvement with the Duke of Edinburgh's award and his patronages. His departure signifies a subtle yet meaningful shift, symbolizing the monarchy's efforts to adapt to contemporary expectations while respecting the individuality of its members. As Edward bids farewell to Buckingham Palace, his next steps will undoubtedly shape his legacy by focusing on family life and charitable endeavors. He continues to embody the values of dedication and service instilled by Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. For many, Edward's departure prompts reflection on what it takes to leave behind the traditions and expectations of Buckingham Palace. The constant criticism, pressure, and lack of freedom tied to royal life can make someone long for an escape. For Edward, trying to build a life outside the royal family came with relentless judgment. Every mistake was magnified, and neither his family nor the public let him forget it. The harsh media spotlight and familial tensions compounded the challenges, making the strict rules and high expectations of royal life feel suffocating for someone seeking a life of their own. Walking away from Buckingham Palace and all it represents might seem like the only way to find freedom and fulfillment. Prince Edward's attempt to leave royal life and establish himself in the entertainment industry was a bold and tumultuous journey. Edward had long been captivated by the allure of show business, once expressing his love for the razzmatazz of the entertainment world, calling it a wonderful realm of fantasy and make-believe. His ultimate goal was to inspire others to engage in various activities, reflecting his desire to connect with people creatively. However, Edward's early ventures into entertainment were marked by both passion and controversy. During his time at Cambridge, he participated in school plays and later produced the Grand Knockout Tournament in 1987, a charity event widely criticized as a damaging episode for the royal family. Since the days of Cromwell, nevertheless, the tantalizingly eligible Prince Edward remained undeterred. Edward pursued his passion further by joining Andrew Lloyd Webber's Really Useful Group and co-founding a theatrical production company in 1990. Unfortunately, this venture failed within a year, accumulating £600,000 in debt. In 1993, Edward took an even more daring step, launching Ardent Productions, a company he claimed symbolized ambition, motivation, and strength, with dreams of producing serious arts drama and documentaries for British television. He downplayed his royal connections and insisted Ardent would avoid royal-themed programs. His business card simply read Edward Wessex, Joint Managing Director. Despite this, the entertainment industry remained skeptical, viewing him as a prince playing at being a producer, and he faced jealousy and scrutiny. Even his family expressed doubts, with Prince Philip reportedly asking why Edward didn't just let the TV professionals handle things and only appear to accept the checks, adding that he was making the royal family look foolish. These concerns seemed justified as Ardent Productions stumbled in its early years. Its first production, Real Tennis, a documentary about an obscure aristocratic sport, garnered only 8,000 viewers. Its next effort, the political satire Anas Bar, was cancelled after one season and criticized as fifth-rate. Faced with mounting criticism and financial losses, Edward pivoted in 1996 by hosting Edward on Edward, a documentary about his great-uncle Edward VII. Although critics mocked it for lacking depth and originality, the program performed surprisingly well. However, Edward's decision to lean into his royal connections invited further backlash. Journalists accused him of hypocrisy, and competitors resented the palace support Ardent received, including exclusive footage and interviews with senior royals. Edward's challenges extended beyond his company. His wife, Sophie, faced scandals, including being duped in 2001 by a fake sheikh posing as a PR client. Combined with Edward's mounting controversies, this led to a review of royal business dealings. By 2001, the royal family introduced stricter guidelines for working royals engaging in commercial ventures. Ardent's most significant misstep came in 2000 when it began producing Royalty, a series for E! That covered the Windsor family's history, including sensitive recent events. This infuriated Prince Charles, particularly when it was revealed that Ardent had filmed near Prince William at St. Andrews. Charles reportedly exploded, calling Edward a negative name. Public criticism of Ardent intensified, with many branding it a vanity project and a sad joke. By 2002, Edward conceded defeat. He stepped down from Ardent, citing the Queen's Golden Jubilee and increased royal duties as his reasons. Despite his optimistic farewell statement, Ardent limped on briefly before being liquidated in 2009 and officially dissolved in 2011, leaving just £40 and 27 remaining. Although his dream of media success ended, Edward and Sophie eventually found their footing as full-time working royals, gaining respect for their dedication. In the years following the Queen's death, Prince Andrew scandals, and Harry and Meghan's departure, Edward's struggles highlighted the challenges of balancing royal identity with personal ambition, a lesson perhaps relatable for Harry and Meghan in their own post-royal ventures. As Edward once lamented, it's a no-win situation, so it doesn't matter which side of the fence you jump off. Before resolving to leave, Edward's life at Buckingham Palace, as the youngest of the Queen's 4 children, was both privileged and highly structured. He was surrounded by the grandeur of royal living, an environment that undoubtedly shaped his ambitions and challenges as he sought to carve out his own path beyond the palace walls. Edward had a unique upbringing that seamlessly blended protocol with personal warmth. Buckingham Palace, serving both as a home and the official residence of the monarch, offered an environment steeped in ceremonial duties and a high degree of discipline. Edward and his siblings, Charles, Andrew, and Anne, were cared for by a retinue of nannies and staff, but were also closely looked after by their parents despite their demanding schedules. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip made time for their family, often gathering in the private quarters of the palace for meals or evening chats. During Edward's early years, life at the palace was a mix of grandeur and simplicity, marked by the big set pieces of state visits and leisurely days playing in Buckingham Palace's vast gardens. Edward was encouraged to explore his academic and artistic interests from a young age. He was educated privately and later attended Gordonstoun School in Scotland, following in the footsteps of his father and brother. It was during this time that his love for drama and theatre began to emerge, a passion that continued to grow as he pursued a degree in history at Cambridge University. After completing his studies, Edward returned to Buckingham Palace where he began taking on royal duties while also venturing into the arts. His brief tenure with the Andrew Lloyd Webber Theatre Company led him to found Ardent Productions, a television production company. This career choice distinguished him from his siblings as Edward charted a unique path that blended creative pursuits with royal responsibilities. Throughout his life, Buckingham Palace remained a focal point for Edward, symbolizing both his public responsibilities and private connections. Whether hosting receptions or attending official events, the palace served as the hub of his royal duties. For a time, Edward also resided at the palace before establishing his family home at Bagshot Park with his wife, Sophie, Countess of Wessex. However, Edward's childhood was not without challenges. According to royal biographer Ingrid Seward, Prince Andrew reportedly bullied his younger brother during their early years. Seward described Edward as endearing and childlike, noting his struggles with Andrew's domineering behavior. Despite these difficulties, Edward eventually outshone Andrew, excelling both academically and socially at Gordonstoun. Edward surpassed his brother by becoming head boy and earning a spot on the cricket first 11 team. In her 1993 book Royal Children, Seward, editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, detailed the relationship between the two princes, being several years apart and much younger than their older siblings, Prince Charles and Princess Anne. Neither Andrew nor Edward bore the intense responsibilities of being the Queen's heir or only daughter. This dynamic allowed Edward to carve out his own identity and achievements, setting him apart within the royal family. Andrew was known for his boisterous nature and frequent tantrums, which included competitive behavior such as snatching treats intended for his younger brother. Edward, in contrast, was described as a sweet and well-mannered child with delicate features. During their early education under a governess at Buckingham Palace, Edward initially lived in Andrew's shadow. While Andrew expressed his frustrations throughout bursts, Edward tended to internalize his emotions, often falling silent with a red face. As they grew older, Edward began to distinguish himself at Gordonstown, excelling in sports, drama, and leadership, while Andrew's path diverged. Edward eventually attended Cambridge University, though his grades were notably below the usual standard for admission. Meanwhile, Andrew pursued a military career, joining the Navy and achieving considerable success. Although Edward initially planned to follow a similar path by joining the Royal Marines, he withdrew from officer training after 4 months, opting for a different course in life. This decision was met with natural disappointment, but it was publicly stated that his choice was respected and understood. Edward then embarked on a private life, which, despite the intention, brought its own challenges and scrutiny. Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, and his wife, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, have long been loyal supporters of the crown and were held in high regard by the late Queen Elizabeth. Despite their significant roles within the royal family, they have worked hard to maintain a low profile when it comes to their personal lives. This dedication to privacy has made them less familiar to many royal fans compared to more high-profile members of the family. However, Edward is far from an enigma. Over the years, he has taken on increasing responsibilities, becoming a core member of the royal family. His history reveals fascinating and complex dimensions, including rumored sibling feuds, disagreements over royal titles, and a strained relationship with the press. These aspects hint at the layers behind a man who is often misunderstood. Edward's ability to balance tradition, duty, and his desire for privacy showcases his nuanced approach to royal life. One of the most visible aspects of royal duty is public engagement, traditionally involving interactions with loyal subjects during events. This practice, known as a walkabout, was popularized by Queen Elizabeth II, who sought a more personal connection with her subjects. Over time, it became an expectation, with such as Princess Diana and Kate Middleton embracing it. However, Edward has chosen to deviate from this norm. While he waves and speaks to crowds, he avoids shaking hands, explaining that it allows him to speak to more people within the limited time available. This practical decision underscores his unique approach to royal duties, balancing tradition with personal efficiency. Edward's personal life, particularly his relationship with Sophie, further reflects his desire for balance and discretion. The couple's story began in 1987 when they met at Capital Radio, where Sophie was working in public relations. They reconnected years later when Sophie managed publicity for a charity tennis event Edward was organizing. Their connection grew, and they began dating secretly away from the public eye. Despite their efforts, the press eventually discovered their relationship. In response, Edward directly appealed to the media, requesting respect for his and Sophie's privacy as he wanted to protect her from invasive coverage. As the relationship became public, Sophie began accompanying Edward to royal events. However, the couple resisted public pressure to rush into an engagement, taking 6 years before deciding to marry. Sophie once recalled being slightly stunned when Edward proposed, but soon realized she needed to answer, ultimately saying yes. Edward, having witnessed the turbulent relationships of his older siblings, was determined to avoid their mistakes. In his early years, Ed demonstrated a cautious approach to his private life, reflecting his commitment to building a stable foundation for his future with Sophie. However, his attempts to shield his personal affairs sometimes backfired. A rare television interview meant to calm public speculation about his relationship with Sophie ended up leaving some with a negative impression. His strong words about wanting privacy were interpreted by some as arrogance, particularly when he bluntly told reporters to mind their own business regarding his decision to propose. While his frustration was understandable, his tone alienated parts of the public. On March 10, 2023, Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, newly titled the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, made their first public appearance. The couple met with members of the Ukrainian community outside Edinburgh's city chambers. Their graceful step into their new roles delighted royal fans, but also sparked concerns about Prince Edward's health. Observers noted that Edward appeared noticeably thinner, leading some to believe he might be unwell. Speculation ranged from illness to the effects of stress or grief, given that Edward had lost both his parents in a short span. However, official sources have not indicated any health issues. German publication Bild reported Buckingham Palace's assurance that Edward is fine, though no concrete proof was provided. Prince Edward was granted the title of Duke of Edinburgh by King Charles for his 59th birthday in March 2023. The title, previously held by their late father Prince Philip for more than 70 years, carried significant emotional weight. It had been Philip's wish for Edward to inherit the dukedom after his death. While Edward previously held the title of Earl of Wessex, many had anticipated he would receive the Duke of Edinburgh title, especially since Queen Elizabeth had reportedly promised it to him. However, the process wasn't straightforward. Initially, King Charles considered saving the title for his granddaughter Princess Charlotte as part of his vision to organize and streamline the monarchy. This decision reportedly hurt Edward, who had been a loyal supporter of Charles, especially during controversies involving their brother Prince Andrew. Ultimately, Charles decided to honor his younger brother, though some sources speculate the title may revert to the crown after Edward's death rather than passing to Edward's son James, now Earl of Wessex. Edward's earlier title choice reflected his personal preferences. On his wedding day in 1999, rather than receiving a dukedom, Edward requested to be named Earl of Wessex. According to the Mirror, he was inspired by the character Lord Wessex from the film Shakespeare in Love and asked the Queen for this unique title. She obliged, making Edward the first of her sons not to hold a dukedom at that time. After their marriage, Edward and Sophie initially pursued private careers alongside their royal duties. However, by 2002, they transitioned to full-time royal roles during the Queen's Golden Jubilee year. Over the years, Sophie focused on supporting programs for women and children, while Edward championed the arts through his royal patronages. Now as the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Edward and Sophie have taken on even greater responsibilities, carrying on the legacy of Prince Philip as Edward follows in his father's footsteps while continuing to carve out his unique path in royal service. Over time, public perceptions of Edward and Sophie have softened. Their dedication to their royal duties, coupled with their enduring marriage, has earned them respect and admiration. Edward's story reveals a man striving to reconcile his public responsibilities with his private values. In hindsight, was his fierce defense of his personal life a misstep or a necessary stand for his principles? Perhaps it was both, reflecting the complexity of a life lived under constant public scrutiny. Would you leave everything behind to find your own path in life as Prince Edward has tried to do? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to News Hub for more. Don't forget to click the next video shown on your screen. You'll enjoy it.